Welcome back to Genome Design, where today we have this stunning 4-litre 718 GTS Boxster behind me. The car is coming for our Stage 1 calibration, which from factory this car is set to produce 400 horsepower in comparison to the GT4, which is somewhere in the region of 420 horsepower, depending on which source you use. We believe that with our Stage 1 we can outperform a GT4 slightly. How it is detuned is using throttle control and less ignition timing. On top of that, we've got a couple of options that the customer really wanted. He's looking for GT4 burbles on overrun and downshift. So as it would do if you had a GT4 instead of the GTS, they do have some factory crackles and burbles on overrun and during gear changes, so we're going to look to introduce that. He'd also like the option to keep the valves closed at all times when the exhaust button is off, and when the exhaust button is on, he'd like the valves open constantly rather than opening at 3,800 RPM. So we're going to introduce all of that, but first of all we want to take you on the journey with us where we tune the car on the dyno live for everybody to see. You're now going to see me conduct the stock runs on this vehicle, gather the data that's required and open it up on my computer to ensure that everything is healthy. So once we've identified the car and everything's okay, we're then able to take a proper read from the car, which can then be sent up to myself. Stage 1 stock read, like that up. This should now set the read process going. As you can see, we've got full communication, and that's it done. So it's a really quick read because it's virtual on this, so it takes it from the server and sends a stock file directly to me. So we now need to flash this vehicle with a mod file. We've got our battery stabilizer in place, the laptop's on charge and we're ready to go. So whilst the car is flashing its mod file, we take an opportunity to go through the stock dyno graph that you can see behind me. This car is producing 360 wheel horsepower, which with a calculation of around 12% transmission loss gives you bang on 403 horsepower. So it's right around what the manufacturer states in its literature and online and everything that I've checked. The torque figure, granted the peak torque is above 300 foot-pounds, it's close to 310, which again translates to around 420 newton meters, I believe, which is exactly what they quote from stock. So this is where the important bit comes in. We've got some throttle closure up here to limit how much power it makes at the top. The ignition timing looks like it could take a little bit more, and hopefully with some slightly more timing tidied up everywhere, a little bit more ignition timing at the top and slightly more open throttle, along with a slightly higher torque request, should allow us to make some good numbers all the way through. It's very rare that a normally aspirated car comes in and you're able to make good gains as a byproduct of it being normally aspirated. The only cars that we've seen it with in the past that behave in the same manner is the Audi R8 V10s. So the difference between a Plus, which makes more horsepower as standard, and the normal V10 is that they close the throttles at high RPM to stop it from making power. So on those, similar to this, we can open up the throttle a little bit, we can tidy up some ignition timing, and generally speaking, I'm expecting to see that we'll make some good gains and that we'll see some good torque in the mid-range. That'll make the car drive beautifully overall, feel a lot crisper. It is going to be calibrated specifically for 99 RON fuel, so not that anybody should be running a Porsche with anything but Shell V-Power or Tesco 99, but we are going to recalibrate it specifically for that fuel. We've managed to add a few GT4 burbles to the file, so we just need to test that, and then we need to test that the button works on the road to ensure that it's closed all the time in normal mode and then open all the time in sport mode. Now that we've seen the car run with the mod file, we wanted to touch on the dyno graph behind me, which you can see the dotted blue line is the previous stock tune. The solid blue line is our mod file, so our new tune. This yellow/green line dotted here is the torque previously, and we've now got a solid line here for our tune file. Main things to take away from this are that we're just off the 400 wheel horsepower mark, which given the 12% correction losses, we're going to be somewhere around 440 horsepower, somewhere around there, which is what we'd hope for. The torque figure throughout the rev range is somewhere between 20 and 25 foot-pounds of torque more. Given that this is a normally aspirated car, that's a really fantastic result. All the way through the rev range from a power point of view, again, we can see anywhere from 20 to 30 wheel horsepower, which is enormous. We wouldn't usually expect to gain that amount on a normally aspirated car. So aside from the obvious, which is that we've made more power and torque, I'm going to check the data logs. If anybody wanted to see further into data and dyno and how it all works and the calibration, please comment below saying so, because I'm not going to go into too much detail today, as it could get quite boring for some people. The idea now is to get the car on the floor, take it on the road, do the data logs on the road to ensure that between the dyno and road logging we've got some consistency. So we've asked this customer permission to film this car today, and he was quite keen for us to put it on our YouTube channel and take it out. I won't use his exact words as to what he said to do with it, but he did say give it a bit of a spirited drive. So given it's now picked up a fair amount of power and torque, some of the things that I'm really interested to know is how does it feel through the rev range. Obviously it's going to be fast at the top because it was already. So as part of the test drive process, we would usually just take the car onto the bypass and do some third and fourth gear pulls, whatever's suitable given the speed limits. This allows us to test the data against what we've got from the dyno cell, but in this particular case, given it's a GTS, we figured some twisty roads would be a really good option. So we've been up and down the bypass already. We've got some data logs which I'm going to interrogate against the dyno logs, and now we plan to give it a bit of a blast over some country roads and see how it feels from a driving point of view. Now this Boxster GTS is complete, it's ready for collection from the customer. If you have a Porsche and you want to discuss tuning, please reach out to us via the following channels: telephone, email, Facebook or Instagram.